CBI Special Investigation Team sets the wheel of investigation in motion. Bandra DCP officially hands over crucial documents like Sushant's diary from his house and farmhouse and case documents as well. The CBI Special Investigation Team divides themselves into two for a fast-paced probe in the Sushant case. One team collects evidence while the other is focusing on recording statements. Sushant's house help Neeraj also questioned. Study by AIIMS suggests gargle lavage can be an alternative to swab tests for detection of COVID-19. Study says this will enable easy self-collection of test samples and also relieve the stress on healthcare workers. Study carried out by Centre for Cellular and Molecular Biology and Indian Institute of Chemical Technology in Hyderabad estimates potential COVID cases in Hyderabad at 6.6 lakh. The figure is almost 7 times that of the total number of cases in the state of Telangana. And we're beginning with some breaking news that's coming in the Sushant Singh Rajput investigation. Now, these are inside details of Sushant's house help being questioned. Sushant's house help was questioned about the night before he was found dead. Neeraj is being questioned about the behavior of Sushant Singh Rajput, his mood, and also about all of those who were present in the house at that point in time. So, a lot of questions being asked as far as Neeraj is concerned. Let me go across to Mayuresh, who's joining us for more on this. Mayuresh, if you can take us through the latest details that are picking up, the kind of questions that are being asked to Neeraj, who is Sushant's house help.
Certainly, Avni, but before that, just I'll ask my camera person to show you the visuals. This is the DRDO guest house at Kalina. It is just next to the highway and not far away from the airport. As you asked me that what exactly is happening inside, the Neeraj, who's a house help, or we can say he was a cook for Sushant Singh Rajput. He has come here and his statement is getting recorded. Today, the CBI's main focus is to know that what exactly had happened on 13th and 14th of June. Because on the basis of the statements, on the basis of their testimony, CBI will go ahead and they will start doing the recreation at the crime scene. So before doing that recreation, they are getting more information in the form of the statement from the people who were present at that moment in the house. So he was one of them. Also, there is a chance that CBI may call Siddharth Pithani, who was Sushant's flatmate, to record his statement. They will also try to get more information from him. So this is right now today's focus of CBI's one team, which is in a DRDO guest house, which is right now recording the statement of Neeraj, is that to get more information about 13th night and 14th entire day, who all were present, how Sushant was behaving, how was his behavior, was he angry or was he depressed, he was normal. So they are trying to get all kind of information from the people who were present, and that's why his house help, or we can say cook, Neeraj, is here, and he's giving the statement, and CBI is recording that statement.
All right, Mayuresh, stay with us. We've in fact got more news that's coming in. Now, CBI has asked the caretaker of Sushant's apartment to be ready with the keys as they will be visiting the house. CBI team will be visiting Sushant's house soon is what we understand. Mayuresh, so this of course is also lined up for today, visiting Sushant's house, and perhaps also we do know that the CBI does intend to recreate the entire crime scene also.
Yes, obviously, that's what I was saying, that all these statements which they are recording right now, they are very much crucial, because from those statements they will get the exact, I will not say exact information, but they will get the information, and on the basis of that information, they will do the recreation to know that what exactly happened at that night, and who was where at this particular house when Sushant was found dead. So what happened on the night of 13th and what happened on the entire day of 14th, that is important for CBI, and they are focusing more on that. And after they record the statement, there is a chance that they will go to Sushant's house in Bandra and they will do this recreation.
All right, Marish, thank you so much for joining us with all of those details. And in more news, in fact, that's coming in, sources are telling us that the CBI has taken over the digital video recorder of Sushant Singh's apartment as well. This will be given to forensic experts to examine whether there was any kind of tampering that was done with the CCTV outside or inside the apartment. So that's the latest details also coming in here. Well, so of course, so all of those developments coming in at this point in time. And in more news coming in, Sushant's sister has recorded her statement with the Enforcement Directorate. The statement is being recorded by the ED in Delhi. So remember, this is the other side of this entire probe. This is the Enforcement Directorate who is also probing the money laundering angle as far as Sushant Singh Rajput case is concerned. And let's straight get to our top focus at this hour on the big story. We are going to talk about two key studies that have been done as far as the coronavirus is concerned. Now, these studies have made some very interesting findings that could perhaps have long-term repercussions in terms of how the testing for COVID is done and what it actually means. Now, on one hand, a study by the AIIMS has found an alternative sample collection method. And on the other hand, fecal matter has been used to detect potential COVID cases in Hyderabad. Now, those findings are also extremely interesting to talk about. So let's in fact first start with the study that AIIMS has done. And now AIIMS has said that gargle lavage could be a viable alternative to swabs for detection itself of COVID-19. So this study essentially says that adopting of gargle lavage as a sample collection method will enable easy self-collection, and it can also relieve healthcare workers. Now, the sample collection method can lead to substantial cost savings on one hand by reducing the need for swabs and protective equipment. And on the other hand, it can also help relieve healthcare workers because this entire swab collection process is a tedious one as well. So, of course, that is as far as this study is concerned. Let me, in fact, go across to Apurva for more details.
That's right, Daphne. We're looking at a new way of detecting COVID, and this is a study that has been conducted by the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, which is now indicating that gargled water, in fact, could be an alternative to the swab test, because there is the study of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, which is, of course, indicating certain drawbacks of the swab test. So let's just quickly understand the difference between the swab test and the gargled water and where these two stands on various parameters that we're going to be now talking about. First, let's talk about the monitoring parameter. Now, we do understand that the swab tests are expensive, whereas if you talk about the gargled water, it is extremely cost effective. Next, we're talking about the fact that swab tests require extensive healthcare workers. It requires extremely trained healthcare workers to carry out the process. However, when you talk about the gargled water, you don't really need any trained healthcare worker. It can actually be easily performed by the patients themselves. Now, when we talk about the exposure to the virus, which is a very critical aspect when we are comparing these two, and this is something that the study further delves into. With regards to the exposure, in terms of swab tests, there is, of course, exposing the healthcare workers to the virus, which does not happen when you talk about the gargled water, because the healthcare workers are not really exposed to the virus when the gargled water process is being done. And also when it comes to the acceptability rate, there is a poor patient acceptability when it comes to the swab test because of a certain level of discomfort that the patients also experience. Whereas in terms of the gargled water, they may have better patient acceptability rate. Now, we spoke about the discomfort that was reported. There is moderate to severe level of discomfort in swab test. However, there is only mild level of discomfort that is reported. And lastly, the swab test does require very special infrastructure for collection, whether it is in the glasses or it will require specialized collection infrastructure. However, for gargled water, there is absolutely no need for any special infrastructure for it.
Yes, absolutely, Apurva. Some extremely important differences between the two. But stay with us. Let's also take a quick look at what the other study that we are talking about today is all about. Now, this, in fact, could set alarm bells ringing, a major cause of concern. In fact, a study that was carried out by the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, as well as the Indian Institute of Chemical Technology in Hyderabad, has revealed an estimated potential COVID cases in Hyderabad at 6.6 lakh. Now, this figure is almost 7 times that of the total number of cases in the entire state of Telangana. And what's even more concerning that has emerged from the study is that potential 2.6 lakh cases could already be among the population in Hyderabad, and most of these cases could be asymptomatic. Now, how was this study actually carried out? And it is essentially carried out by subjecting fecal matter in sewage water to tests, and when the wastewater was then examined, the presence of coronavirus and its spread was confirmed as per this study. The survey was carried out in 80% sewage plants in Hyderabad. It was done to study the spread in a specified and in a particular area. So let me go back to Apurva here to understand a little more about this. Apurva, if you can shed some light on how important is this study, because it is using a new method to detect the presence of coronavirus and could sort of have long-term ramifications going ahead as well.
That's right, Avni. We are looking at a very important and extensive study that has been conducted, and this has been done by the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology along with the Indian Institute of Chemical Technology in Hyderabad. Now, the study has been carried out subjecting the fecal matter in sewage water for test. Now, why are we looking at the fecal matter and why this is important is because the infected, those who are infected, shed virus through nose, through mouth and through fecals. So, the infected will be shedding the viral material of to 35 days, and therefore the study finds out that the coronavirus in sewage samples is non-infectious, and this is something that is extremely important when we talk about the exposure to the virus. So this finds out that the coronavirus which is in sewage, which is in fact non-infectious, and lastly the sewage samples that are there are suitable for the epidemiological studies, and that is the reason we find out that the studying of the fecal matter is actually very important in detection of the coronavirus.
All right, Apurva, thank you so much for joining us with all of those details. Well, that's a gist of what both these studies are, but we are going to now delve a little bit more deeply into it and understand what impact these could possibly have. Joining me at this point is Dr. V.K. Monga, Chairman, IMA Hospital Board. Thank you so much, Dr. Monga, for joining us. Let's start with the first study. This entire new process of detecting COVID by using gargle lavage, it could have long-term, impact on how samples are collected, and could make things much easier.
I agree with the statement made by Apurva and yourself, and it's a very welcome alternate to the swab test that we have been relying upon till now. Because, it's a cumbersome procedure. Swab test, people will come to you with PPEs in dreaded atmosphere. They'll take your swab and, go through your nose or the mouth. And then on top of it, they carry that infection potential, they can get that infection from the patient also. All these hazards will be taken care of. Gargling is a very simple procedure. Most of us do it at home whenever there is a cold or something like this. And then, if you collect your own gargled water in a container which is clean and then give it to the laboratory, I think you are, saving the swabs, you are saving the training of the healthcare workers, then exposure of the healthcare workers is also saved, PPE cost is saved, and then the whole procedure of coming to some lab, collecting it, and then sending it, and then processing it. I think it's just a very, very welcome step by AIMS studies, and I'm sure ICMR has also agreed that this is a welcome thing, and in days to come, it should become the regular method of collection of samples in suspected cases of COVID in the country.
Yes, Dr. Monga. So, like you're pointing out, this could, become much easier for COVID samples to go through the entire method of testing. But what is the next step now in terms of this? Of course, is a limited study that has been done with, results that could perhaps be encouraging to sort of try and take this mainstream. But what are the next steps now for this to, be taken to the next level, larger studies perhaps, and then finally be brought into mainstream as part of testing?
That's right. I mean, everything like this, needs to be studied at a bigger scale. And then it is to be percolated down to district and smaller laboratories also, Once ICMR has given go ahead to this, then I think more and more AIMS and other laboratories in the country, NABL accredited laboratories, they will do the same, replicate the same, and then definitely it can become a norm also sometime. I'm sure, the way it has been done, and ICMR has agreed to it, all the laboratories, around 1,400 laboratories in the country are doing this test now. This should be a welcome procedure for most of the laboratories because it will be hassle-free, number one. It will be cost-effective, number two. Then it will be saving the infection potential of healthcare providers and healthcare workers who are collecting the samples also. I think let's go down in the next 3, 4, 5 days and see how the country reacts to it, maybe how the world reacts to it. And then if possible, then this will be definitely a thing of the day. It will be not of a past because I think it is a future of collection of samples from patients who are suspected of COVID.
Right. And Dr. Monga, if you can also tell us where else, if at all, this method is being used currently, and in terms purely from a medical, clinical perspective, in terms of the way the virus settles in the body and, the chances of being detected in a swab versus in this gargle lavage sample, what would be the difference there?
That difference will remain, I believe, because in swab, you are going right to the nasopharynx or to the back of the throat, collecting in a swab, and then putting it in a test tube and taking it to your laboratory. But in this, yes, definitely procedural issues will be there. Some people may not be able to gargle well. Even in our practice, we tell some patients, go and do gargle for your throat. I can't do it. So in those cases, when a patient cannot do it, then the sample collection can be faulty also. In those cases, you will have to adopt the old gold standard of collecting samples by swab. And it is a pilot study for the time being. It has to go through many more tests. And as and when we are able to, take it as a standard guideline, then definitely we should be able to give it to the laboratories all over the country. But definitely, yes. There may be some lesser chances of detecting a virus by gargles as compared to direct getting the sample with the swab. Definitely, we need to work on this issue.
Okay. All right, Dr. Monga. So, that is some interesting perspective there as far as this entire process is concerned. Now, coming to the other study that has been carried out, and we do know that there has been a lot of talk about the number of asymptomatic people as far as COVID is concerned, or probably already part of the population and who have recovered. So, we don't really know the actual number of people who are testing who could have COVID really. Now, this sewage sample-based epidemiological study that has been done. It shows that the number of people in Hyderabad, about more than 6 lakh people who could actually have COVID. And this is again a new kind of study that has been done, at least for the first time in India. What is your take on this entire study and the process it is following to sort of, this sort of gives a sense of community transmission or on a large scale, the kind of spread of COVID in a particular area?
This is a study, definitely a great study by Hyderabad, by CCMB and IICT. And in this, they have studied the virus in the fecal matter, which are going through the sewer. Now the issue is, it is a known fact that virus can penetrate your body, go into your body through your mouth also. When it goes through your mouth, it will go into the intestines. And around 10% of cases all over the world, they are coming to hospitals with loose motions, diarrhea, dysentery also. So, and then up to 45 days. They have said 35 days, even 45 days, this virus RNA fragments can be detected in your fecal matter, which ultimately goes into the sewer lines. And this, whatever this virus is, the fragments, they are non-infectious. Most important part is that they will tell you the epidemiological range of the disease in that locality. But that cannot spread the infection also. Because by the time it goes through the intestine and passes in the feces, it becomes non-infectious and it is not able to transmit the disease. As a difference to the fecal passage of, for example, polio. Polio virus, when it went from the fecal into the sewer, then it was able to, because some people have contamination of their water with the sewer. So this polio infection was spreading. But this is a non-replicable, non-infectious virus. So there are no chances of this giving infection. But it is a very great epidemiological study, because it will tell you that how many people have got infected, asymptomatic, symptomatic, cured, or even mild.
Yes.
That is a major part.
Right. Absolutely, Dr. Monga, completely take your point there. So something that we actually need to wait and watch for, what kind of impact it is going to have going forward. Thank you so much for joining us with all of that perspective. We're going to slip into a very quick break here. Be back with more. And news coming in, the Ernakulam Principal Sessions Court has denied bail to Swapna Suresh, remember, who is the prime accused in the Kerala gold smuggling case. Now, additionally, the court has made a few important observations in relation to this case, pointing out that the involvement of highly placed individuals exists as far as the Kerala gold smuggling case is concerned. Those are the latest inputs coming in as far as this entire case is concerned. Court clearly saying that people with strong influence are involved and has refused to grant bail to Swapna Suresh, who at this point in time is the prime accused in this entire case. So the court has asked to look into VVIP links. Vivek is joining us for more details. Vivek, this is of course here being reiterated, the possibility of people with high influence who are part of this case and bail being denied here to Swapna Suresh.
Exactly. The bail has been denied by the Ernakulam Principal Sessions Court. when Swapna Suresh was produced over there by the Enforcement Directorate in connection with this case. Now, the court clearly observed that a large gang was involved in the smuggling. There are influential people, and also it demanded to check the links of highly placed individuals in this particular case. And the court refused to dismiss this ED's argument that the gold jewelry and cash was kept in the bank locker was black money. Because there is, even when the customs and the NIA had questioned her, they did get, clear evidence to prove that, she was using black money or unaccounted money and the money which is found in the bank locker. She herself has admitted that, she had got that, as a commission in the Life Mission project. But the amount was actually, contended. She said she only received 1 crore, but the investigation has proved that it was 4 crores. So various discrepancies in her own statement is also an issue in this. And also we understand that, Swapna Suresh, Sarit and Sandeep has received commissions from various people, and, these money has been invested in various other businesses and also, in other banks. So all these matters have been, looked upon right now. But as of today, the ED, the Principal Sessions Court has taken by face value, clearly, accepted the arguments made by the Enforcement Directorate and said that her influence outside, especially the power corridors at the bureaucratic level, there cannot be any grounds for granting her bail at this point of time, because remember, the investigation is going on and a lot of people needs to be investigated at this point of time. And at this juncture, granting bail to Swapna Suresh will not serve any purpose.
All right, Vivek, thank you so much for joining us with all of those details. All right, let's in fact turn our attention to the major development as far as the Yes Bank scam is concerned. Bombay High Court granted bail to DHFL promoters Dheeraj and Kapil Wadhawan, who had been arrested by the Enforcement Directorate in the case. High Court granted bail to Wadhawan after Enforcement Directorate failed to file a charge sheet within the stipulated time frame of 60 days. In fact, they went ahead and filed the charge sheet on the 61st day. But the Wadhawans will not walk out of jail because they're also under arrest in a related case filed by the Central Bureau of Investigation. And on that note, it's time to wrap up this edition. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned to Mirror Live.